Good evening. Today is Sunday, April 19th, 2026. I'm Rich Stevens, and this is The Cold Take. What you're about to hear is news from this week, taken only from primary sources like press conferences and court documents. You can find those sources and attribution for every story at thecoldtake.com. We begin in Utah, where Friday, April 17th, the accused murderer of Charlie Kirk was back in court. The judge again addressed the camera operators regarding the February 24th order limiting still or video images of the defendant. The defense also argued for extra time before the preliminary hearing, currently scheduled for May 18th. The prosecution argued that the defense is stalling and punishing both the state and the victim by delaying proceedings. One portion of the hearing revolved around the testimony of a consultant who argued with a straight face that cameras should not be allowed at trial. His position was that reporters will give an accurate account of what happens and that a live stream allows people on the internet to offer commentary, conspiracy theories, and prejudicial statements. Ladies and gentlemen, if there were ever an argument to have cameras record and broadcast what happens exactly as it happens, it specifically is that the media have proven themselves wholly unable to deliver facts without injecting their own opinions or priorities. I watched the OJ trial in its entirety. I watched more than 90% of the Casey Anthony case. I watched press conferences, congressional hearings, court cases, anything unedited that I can get my hands on. I spend hours vetting written sources and replaying videos so that I can bring you the most unbiased version of what actually happened that I am humanly capable of. I do have bias, and I do have opinions, and this story is a great example of my opinion spilling out. And that's because this is important to me. Sensationalism gets clicks, but the facts just might help us take a small step towards the middle and start a conversation about something that actually matters, instead of letting the media tell us what to think. Judge Tony Graff will rule on cameras in court May 8th, and you can subscribe for updates to this case when they're available. In world news, the status of the Strait of Hormuz is currently fluid, and that fluid is murky. On Tuesday, April 8th, the White House said Iran agreed to a ceasefire and to reopening the strait, while the administration negotiated a broader peace agreement. On Friday, April 11th, CENTCOM said U.S. forces began clearing Iranian sea mines from the strait. On Saturday, April 12th, CENTCOM announced a blockade on ships entering and leaving Iranian ports, but said it would not block ships transiting to and from other ports. On Thursday, April 16th, the State Department announced a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. On Friday, April 17th, the White House said the Strait of Hormuz was completely open again. You may have seen social media posts about Iran firing on ships as recently as this morning, but I cannot find official statements confirming this. Iran did say Pakistani brokered talks produced technical understandings, but they did not say there was a final agreement. There's also still no public official document showing Iran agreed to end its nuclear program. Do you think only media should be allowed in the courtroom and we should just take their word for what happened? If not, hit like and subscribe. Moving to U.S. politics, on Sunday, April 12th, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell suspended his campaign for governor of California and wrote that he was, quote, deeply sorry for mistakes in judgment that he had made in his past. On Monday, April 13th, the House Ethics Committee announced that it had opened an investigation into Swalwell. They seek to determine whether he violated the Code of Official Conduct or other applicable standards, including allegations that he may have engaged in sexual misconduct, including toward an employee working under his supervision. On Tuesday, April 14th, Swalwell resigned from Congress. The clerk of the House says California's 14th congressional district is now operating as a vacant office under clerk supervision until a successor is elected. The public allegations escalated at a press conference held by Lana Drew and her attorney. Drew said she met Swalwell socially in 2018 while living and working in Beverly Hills. She said that during a third encounter, she believed he drugged her raped her and choked her until she lost consciousness. Drew said she did not consent, disclosed the assault to people close to her, recorded it in a handwritten calendar, and later discussed it in therapy at a sexual assault center. However, across the aisle, Monday, April 13th, Republican Congressman Tony Gonzales said on his official X account that he would file his retirement from office when Congress returned. Tuesday, April 14th, the House clerk recorded that Gonzales had formally resigned, effective at 11:59 p.m. that night. The resignation followed a House Ethics Committee investigation opened March 4th into whether Gonzales engaged in sexual misconduct toward a congressional employee or dispensed special favors or privileges. The committee later said it had also received an Office of Congressional Conduct referral, and in the days before Gonzales resigned, members of Congress, including Nancy Mace and Catherine Clark, publicly connected his departure to those allegations. Virginia has become the 18th state to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. House Bill 965, approved by Governor Abigail Spanberger on April 13th, enters Virginia into an agreement that would award all of the state's electoral votes to the candidate who wins the national popular vote, not necessarily the candidate who wins Virginia. The law will take effect July 1st of 2026. The compact does not abolish the Electoral College, but it does work around it. The compact only takes effect once states holding at least 270 electoral votes have joined. Until then, Virginia will keep using its current system. The Constitution says each state appoints electors in the manner its legislature directs, and the Supreme Court has recognized broad state power over elections. I'll link a video from an attorney in Washington State who gives a better legal explanation than I could ever be able to. On Monday, April 6th, the Dominican Sisters of Hawthorne and Rosary Hill Home filed a federal lawsuit against New York State over the state's LGBTQ long-term care rules. Rosary Hill, founded in 1901, says it is a free Catholic home for patients with incurable cancer and accepts no payment from patients, families, insurance, or government. The lawsuit challenges a law signed by Governor Kathy Hochul in November of 2023 that bars discrimination in long-term care facilities on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or HIV status. The statute includes room assignment, restroom, pronoun, record-keeping, and staff training requirements, and the sisters say those rules violate their Catholic beliefs. The complaint says Rosary Hill received 3 Department of Health compliance letters and could face fines, court orders, licensing consequences, or jail time if it refuses to comply. Former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Fairfax shot and killed his wife, Dr. Serena Wanzer Fairfax, inside their home just after midnight Thursday, April 16th. He then killed himself, according to Fairfax County Police. Police Chief Kevin Davis said Serena Fairfax was shot several times in the basement, and Justin Fairfax then went upstairs and shot himself with the same firearm. Their 2 teenage children were in the house at the time, and police say the son called 911. Police also said they had responded to the home in January after Fairfax claimed his wife assaulted him, but cameras inside the house showed that allegation was false. Governor Abigail Spanberger later called Serena Fairfax's death a murder in an apparent murder-suicide. Friday, April 11th, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch said officers at Grand Central Terminal were flagged down around 9:40 a.m. This was after a man, armed with what she described as a machete, stabbed multiple people on the subway platforms. Tisch said officers gave the suspect at least 20 orders to drop the weapon, tried to de-escalate, and then shot him after he advanced towards them with the knife extended. Police identified the suspect as 44-year-old Anthony Griffin. Tisch said he entered the system in Queens, rode a 7 train to Grand Central, and attacked 3 people before officers stopped him. The victims, including an 84-year-old man and a 65-year-old man, were taken to Bellevue, and police said their injuries were not believed to be life-threatening at the time. In other knife and stabbing news, Tuesday, April 14th, Omaha police say officers fatally shot a woman. This was after she abducted a 3-year-old boy at knife point from a Walmart and cut him during the confrontation outside. Police identified the suspect as 31-year-old Naomi Guzman. They said officers ordered her to drop the knife, she refused, and 2 officers fired after she injured the child. Police said the boy was taken into Children's Hospital with injuries that were not considered life-threatening. Omaha police also said surveillance showed Guzman had shoplifted the knife inside the store before forcing the child and guardian into the parking lot. The officer-involved shooting investigation is still underway. On Thursday, April 16th, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty announced 2 counts of second-degree assault against ICE agent Gregory Donald Morgan Jr. over a February 5th incident on Highway 62 in Minnesota. The county says Morgan, driving a rented, unmarked SUV, pulled alongside another vehicle and pointed his duty weapon at both occupants, and a nationwide warrant has now been issued. Under Minnesota law, the charge covers assault with a dangerous weapon and says that a firearm qualifies as a dangerous weapon. Fair. The warrant means a judge found probable cause, but the underlying complaint and evidence have not been publicly released in official materials that I reviewed. Any actual arrest or prosecution would likely be difficult and quickly challenged by the federal government. Federal law allows a state criminal case against a federal officer to be removed to federal court, and DOJ has long taken the position that federal officers are protected from state criminal liability when acting within their federal duties under the Supremacy Clause. On Thursday, April 16th, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced that the federal government was withholding more than $73 million from New York after FMCSA said the state failed to revoke illegally issued non-domiciled commercial trucking licenses. USDOT said a prior audit found 107 violations in 200 sample records, a failure rate of more than 53%. They also said New York's system defaulted to issuing some licenses for 8 years, regardless of when lawful status expired. Federal regulations say non-domiciled commercial licenses may be issued only to eligible applicants and, for certain non-domiciled drivers, may not remain valid beyond the person's immigration validity period or 1 year, whichever is less. New York has denied the allegations. In its official response last December, the state DMV said it complies with federal rules and verifies lawful status through federally issued documents. Markets continued their climb this week. The Dow picked up 1,531 points and closed at 49,447, a 3.2% gain. NASDAQ did even better, picking up nearly 7%, closing at 24,468 after gaining 1,566 points. For those of you keeping score at home, that's the highest close on record for that index. The S&P 500 closed at 7,126, a gain of 310 points, representing a 4.5% gain. Gold rose another $92, closing at $4,879 an ounce, while oil futures dropped. And in sports, Sunday, April 12th, Rory McIlroy won the Masters for the second straight year, finishing 12 under and beating Scottie Scheffler by 1 stroke at Augusta. While Scheffler didn't win, he did do something no one at the Masters has done since 1942, a bogey-free weekend. Over the final 2 rounds, he posted 9 birdies, 1 eagle, and 0 bogeys. In MLB, the Dodgers set a weird record on Friday, April 17th. While visiting the Rockies, the 35-degree temperature was the coldest first pitch in club history. Snow blanketed the field just hours before the game, but the Dodger bats warmed things up, taking a 7-1 win. Yankees ace Garrett Cole threw 44 pitches in his first rehab start since Tommy John surgery in 2025. The Yankees are 3-7 over their last 10, sliding a half game behind the Rays, who swept them earlier in the week. It could be worse, though. Their crosstown rival Mets have lost 9 in a row and sit at the bottom of the NL East. And whether you like it or not, that's what happened. I'm Rich Stevens, and this has been The Cold Take. Just to recap, guy stabs 3 people on a train. Police ask him 20 times to put down the knife, and they don't shoot him until he runs at them. Meanwhile, in Omaha, we have officers who allow a knife-wielding person to injure a 3-year-old before they intervene. What?